Imagine you're walking through a forest. Birds are singing, monkeys are calling, insects are buzzing, and somewhere underground, even tiny ants are exchanging information. But have you ever stopped to wonder, how do animals actually communicate with each other? Do they have languages? Do they have names? Can they share detailed information? As it turns out, animal communication is far more complex than scientists once believed, and some animals can do things that seem surprisingly close to human language. Let's find out how. Animals communicate for many reasons. They need to warn others about danger, attract mates, defend territory, find food, maintain social bonds, and care for their young. Unlike humans, most animals don't use spoken language with grammar and sentences. Instead, they rely on sounds, body movements, chemicals, touch, and even vibrations. One of the most famous examples comes from honeybees. In the 1940s, Austrian biologist Karl von Frisch discovered something extraordinary. When a worker bee finds a good source of nectar, it returns to the hive and performs what's called a waggle dance. This isn't random movement. The angle of the dance tells other bees the direction of the food relative to the sun, while the duration of the waggle indicates how far away the food source is. In other words, a bee can communicate location data through dance. Scientists have spent decades studying this behavior, and modern experiments have even used robotic bees to confirm that other bees can follow these instructions and locate the advertised food source. That's a remarkable level of information transfer for an insect. But communication becomes even more fascinating when we look at mammals. One of the most famous studies in animal communication was conducted by researchers Robert Seyfarth and Dorothy Cheney in the late 1970s and early 1980s. They studied vervet monkeys in East Africa and discovered that the monkeys use different alarm calls for different predators. If a leopard is nearby, they produce one call. If an eagle appears overhead, they use another. And if they spot a snake, they make a completely different sound. What's remarkable is how the other monkeys react. When they hear the eagle call, they run for cover beneath trees and bushes. When they hear the snake call, they stand upright and scan the ground. And when they hear the leopard call, they climb into trees. The monkeys aren't simply reacting to fear. They're responding to specific information contained in the call. Many scientists consider this one of the strongest examples of meaning-based communication in the animal kingdom. Even more interestingly, later research showed that young monkeys must learn some of these associations over time, suggesting experience plays a role in understanding communication. Another animal that has amazed researchers is the prairie dog. Biologist Kon Slobodchikov spent years studying prairie dog alarms and found evidence suggesting their vocalizations may contain far more detail than we expected. According to his research, prairie dogs don't just communicate that a predator is coming, their calls may also encode information about the predator's size, speed, shape, and even color. In one famous study, prairie dogs appeared to produce different alarm calls when humans wore different colored shirts. While scientists continued to debate exactly how much information these calls contain, the findings suggest that animal communication can be surprisingly sophisticated. Then there are dolphins. For decades, researchers including Vincent Yannick and Leila Sai have studied bottlenose dolphin communication. Their work revealed that dolphins produce unique signature whistles. Think of these whistles as something similar to names. Each dolphin develops its own distinctive whistle, and other dolphins can copy it to address or identify that specific individual. Research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showed that dolphins recognize these whistles even when all other voice characteristics are removed. In simple terms, they're responding to the identity being communicated, not merely the sound itself. More recent studies have shown that mother dolphins even modify their whistles when communicating with their calves, somewhat resembling the way humans change their voices when talking to babies. And dolphins aren't alone. In 2024, researchers published evidence suggesting that African elephants may use individually specific calls that function similarly to names. Using machine learning and acoustic analysis, scientists found that elephants appear capable of addressing specific individuals using unique vocal labels. This suggests that name-like communication may have evolved independently in multiple species. Communication isn't always vocal either. Ants, for example, rely heavily on chemicals called pheromones. When an ant discovers food, it leaves a chemical trail on the ground as it returns to the colony. Other ants detect the trail and follow it directly to the food source. Millions of ants can coordinate complex activities without speaking a single word. Some animals even communicate through vibrations. Spiders can send messages through their webs. Elephants can detect low-frequency high-frequency vibrations traveling through the ground. Certain insects communicate by vibrating leaves and stems. These signals may be invisible and inaudible to us, but they create entire communication networks hidden from human senses. So, do animals have language? Most scientists would say no, not in the same way humans do. Human language contains complex grammar, infinite creativity, and the ability to discuss abstract concepts. However, animal communication systems can still be incredibly advanced. Many species can learn, adopt, and refine their communication over time. The more scientists study animal communication, the more they realize that the natural world is filled with conversations happening all around us. We just don't understand them. And perhaps the biggest discovery is this: animals may not speak our language, but they're definitely not silent.